Well, welcome everybody to our webinar recording of 5 key leadership skills to develop and master. So what we want to start you off with is what I call the leadership projection exercise. And this is an exercise just to help you kind of get some context for what we're going to be doing today. And what I'd like you to do, if you're at home listening to the recording, is get out some paper and think about some leaders that you admire. And these could be people that you actually worked for, that you happen to love working for, or they could be people that you maybe observed in your organization that other people worked for and you were thinking, gosh, I'd love to work for that person. Or it could be someone not even in an organization. It could be someone in politics, someone at your church, someone in your family who really seems to, portray what you feel is leadership to the point where you would follow them and you would really want to be working with that person on anything. And so depending on how much time you have, so if you're listening to the recording, you could probably pause the recording and spend some time reflecting on this. And usually when I work with my clients on leadership, I actually have them think of about 3 different people. So it's up to you how many people you choose, but the names of the people that you choose aren't as important as what you put in the second column, which is what is it about this person that got them on my list? And for some of you, it's going to be a description of how you felt when you were working with this person or how you imagine this person impacts others. For some of you, it's going to be various traits. But what I'd like you to do is think for each person that you chose, what was it about that person that got them on your list compared to any other person that could have been on your list? And then what I'd like you to do is look at your second column and see if you see any patterns. And what I will share with you is what our morning workshop people came up with. And this is just a sampling of what they came up with, but I'll read it to you. So, had a meaningful and purposeful life, lived their values, kind of a role model, great communicator, not a pushover, but very invested in helping and supporting others. Clear decision maker, great energy, positive, humble about mistakes, learns from mistakes, authentic, made me feel cared about and invested in, really confident, always present in conversations. So if you look at this list, a lot of what's on this list comes down to not so much what the leader was really good at, although it does have to do with the skills the leader had, but those skills produce something. And what they produce is an experience for the people who report to them. The thing to notice about your answers, and just I can share with you that I've noticed this over the 20 years that I've worked in coaching, and also, even before that in organizations when I've experienced leadership, is what makes a good leader is mostly about the experience other people have around them, not about the leader, him or herself. And one of the mantras that many of my clients have said has really touched them and helped them stay grounded is what makes people respect you as a leader is not about you, but about how they feel about themselves when they are around you. I'm going to repeat that. What makes people respect you as a leader is not about you, but about how people feel about themselves when they're around you. And so when you think about this, it makes it really important to think about how rare that is. Being in a management position doesn't actually make you a good leader. In fact, very few people in management positions are good leaders, to the point where in my coaching practice, a lot of people who are seeking mentoring, I help them develop a strategy of finding that mentoring outside of their direct manager. because the chances that they actually have a direct manager who's also a great mentor is really rare. And I kind of try to lower their expectations and say, hey, if you happen to get a manager who's a great mentor as well, that's a gem, and milk that. But for the most part, the managers that you have throughout your career are not going to be the greatest mentors. So if you want mentoring, here are some things you can do to develop mentors on your own throughout your industry, within your network, that sort of thing. Now, by the same token, you don't have to be in a management position to be a good leader. So the question is, if your position isn't what defines you as a leader, what does? And that's one of the main questions that came up in the morning session. Well, if being in a management position doesn't make you a good leader, and there are many good leaders who aren't actually in management positions, then how can you tell whether or not you're a good leader? And it turns out that it actually is pretty hard to tell whether or not you are a good leader. And this is why we use the 360 assessments a lot for people who are doing leadership coaching, so that they can get an idea of how other people perceive them. Because again, whether or not you're a good leader isn't really something that you can feel. It's only about how other people feel around you. Most of the best leaders are also very humble, and so they don't really notice or think about themselves. So the question, am I a good leader, isn't on their mind a lot. And in fact, if you think you're a really good leader, that could be an indication that you've got a lot of room to grow as a leader. I kind of think of leadership very similar to listening as a skill. People who are the best listeners have developed the ability to notice when they're not listening, and they notice how often they don't listen, so they don't think that they're very good at listening. And they have that, continued desire to get better and better at listening. The people who think they're great listeners actually don't have the awareness of how poorly they listen. So if you ask two people whether or not they were good listeners, the person who said that they were a good listener is probably a worse listener than the person who says, I don't think I'm a very good listener, because I notice how often I stop listening to people. It's the same with leadership. People who are really good leaders tend to have stopped wondering whether or not they're good leaders, because they don't care so much about themselves. They tend to get very absorbed, and they tend not to have much of an ego. And that's another thing that we discussed in our class this morning. I actually shared that of all the leadership positions I've had, the one where I got the most accolades was so far different from all of my other leadership positions that I asked myself afterwards, well, what was it about that position that was different? And the one thing I came up with is, wow, my ego didn't come into play at all. I saw this as a temporary position, so I wasn't worried about my status. I wasn't worried about what other people thought of me. I was really just invested in the organization and what the organization was trying to accomplish, and how to help the organization accomplish that, and how to help all the team members do really well in their jobs. And I wasn't thinking about myself at all. In fact, I felt really invisible. And because I felt that, other people responded to me in a much more positive way, because I wasn't thinking about myself. I was actually immersed in them. And so they were just playing completely off my energy. And when you have an ego, or when you're thinking about, what do these people think about me? Do they like me? Am I being seen as a good leader? Is my team getting the results they need to get? Are the mistakes that my team making, are they going to make me look bad? All of that actually gets in your way, and it makes it hard for you to be an effective leader. Okay, but you can see and feel a good leader from the outside. They're the people that everyone naturally turns to for a decision, or to calm their anxiety when things aren't going well. And you'll just gravitate to them. So I was actually sharing a story this morning about when 9/11 happened, and how many of us in the organization that I worked in at that time kind of gathered around our leader, and we were just talking, but it was, you could almost see us, we gathered around him for emotional comfort. And that's what happens. True leaders have an energy about them that is comforting and clarifying to other people. The good news is, that it doesn't matter how good you are now at leadership. It doesn't matter if you've been a leader for 17 years and you still don't know for sure if you're getting the respect that you'd like to have from your team, or if you're really getting if you're really thought of in the organization as one of the better leaders and you're kind of curious about that, or if you aren't in a leadership position but you kind of aspire to be a leader, you're kind of curious about that. It doesn't matter if you're a beginning manager. No matter who you are, you can improve your leadership skills and presence with active work on yourself. So how do we start that? Well, one of the things I'd like to do is have you grounded in one commitment, and that commitment is, what is the experience you want to create for others? So I want you to think of yourself as a leader, and I want you to think about how the people around you would ideally feel in your presence, and write it down. And again, for those of you who are listening to the recording, you can actually be a little bit more reflective about this, and you can pause the recording and think about writing it down. When we were in the workshop, I gave people a few minutes to think about it before they wrote it down, and we had people go around and share. But for now, I'm just going to have you write it down for yourself. This is what I want you to use as a touchstone. I want you to think very hard about what the experience is you want others to have of you or about themselves when they're in your presence as a leader. So once you've written that down, now we'll talk about how to create it. So what I can tell you is, with all the years that I've worked with people on developing their leadership skills, and from the things that I've observed and from the things that I've heard other people say, most of what leaders do that make a huge positive difference in the experience of the people that work for them fall roughly under these three categories. The first is clarity. So part of being a great leader is being able to create the experience of clarity. So if I'm around you, I know what my goals are. I know what we're trying to accomplish. I'm excited about what we're trying to accomplish. I see how the little things that I do every day tie in to the bigger picture. I understand what the organization's mission is. I feel excited about it. I feel a personal buy-in to the mission. And I'm always excited about my goals, and I'm always clear about my goals and the next steps that I take. And I know when I'm being effective and when I'm not being effective, because I'm also getting a lot of guidance and feedback. That's number 3 here, so I'm jumping from 1 to 3. But I'm getting ongoing feedback and mentoring from my leader, and I feel invested in because I'm being paid attention to. So I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel cared about, I feel invested in. I know that my leader has my back. I know that I'm going to thrive and I'm going to continue to grow while I'm in this position. And almost more important than both of those other things is the leader's presence. That calm, positive energy that people experience when they're around the leader. People operate emotionally on energy. And whether you're really stressed out or you're really feeling good, other people are going to feel your energy. And they're going to respond to your energy more than they're going to respond to the words that you say. So energy is really, really important in the leadership equation. And a lot of people have to spend most of their coaching work really becoming aware on when they get stressed out, how they behave when they're stressed out, and how it inadvertently affects everyone around them. And if a leader is going to fall down, usually it's because when they're stressed, even though they don't realize it, they're coming across as very judgmental and demeaning to their team, or they're coming across as if they don't have it together and they're not clear, so their anxiety's coming out and their team doesn't feel very safe in their presence. So their energy does a lot and they're not even aware of it. So these are the 3 main groups, or the main categories of things that we really focus on in terms of leadership skill development. Being able to create clarity, being able to put forth a calm, positive, confident energy, and being able to give effective guidance. The actual skills, the 5 skills that I have people focus on are a little bit more tangible, and they tie into those 3 categories. So number 1, clearly articulate a vision or goal and get others excited about making it happen. That's a skill you can develop whether you're in a leadership position or not. You can be in college and you can decide that you want to get everybody excited about going to a specific party or event, and you can practice your leadership by the way you talk to people about going to the event. Or maybe you're in a study group or a study team and you want everyone to approach the project in a certain way so that you can all get a good grade. How you interact in that team and how you influence the team to move from point A to point B is a great exercise in leadership. Number 2, give frequent, direct, and kind feedback. So this goes to the guidance piece. When we talk about mentoring and guidance, everybody craves mentoring, and there's a lot of research that has been done on why people leave organizations and why people stay at organizations. And the number 1 reason why people leave organizations voluntarily is because of their boss, because of their relationship with their boss, because they didn't feel supported, guided, and directed. They didn't feel like they're thriving in their career in their relationship with their boss. Maybe they didn't feel seen, heard, but that relationship wasn't strong. By the same token, the number 1 reason why people stay in an organization when things get really bad or are challenging is because of their relationship with their boss, because they have a loyalty there. They feel that this person, they're going to thrive with this person through thick and thin, and they're going to stand behind this leader because this leader's been there for them. And so that relationship is so strong that they're going to stay at the organization even if the organization is going through some challenges, maybe there aren't pay raises, those types of things. So that relationship with their direct boss is one of the most influential pieces in the equation of whether an employee stays or goes. So when you think about that and you think about employee retention and the cost of employee retention, that's something to keep in mind, is that giving guidance and mentoring to employees or teaching your leaders how to give guidance and mentoring to their constituents is probably something well worth spending time on. Number 3, be aware of how your stress impacts others, take ownership, and mitigate the damage. Now, we did a show of hands in the workshop, and we said, hey, how many of you think people feel stressed in organizations? About what percentage of the time? And most people said that their opinion is, so this is more of a subjective research that we did, but I would think most people that I've talked to about this would agree that in most organizations, most people feel stressed about 80% of the time, which is sad but true. And if you think about that, then 100% of the time, at least some people are stressed out in an organization. And when you're stressed, people are picking up on your energy. So even if you don't want people to pick up on your energy, even if you're shutting down, even if you're hiding out in your office, people pick up on that and they respond to it. And if you're a boss, that increases by tenfold. Because if you're in a power position, that person's energy is the energy that infects everybody else. So if you're just having a bad day and you're walking from your car to your office and you just don't feel like saying hello to anybody that day, you just made 5 people fearful that they're going to lose their job because they think you're mad at them. And that's just how it works if you're operating in a power position. So that's why really becoming aware of your stress and learning how to mitigate it is one of the most powerful things you do. And do you need to be a manager to start becoming aware of your stress? No, you can start doing that at any point in your life when you're ready to commit to personal growth. So number 4, serve a purpose beyond your ego. Model this value system to those around you. Now, this is another thing that goes along with personal growth. So I had said earlier that the leadership position that I was in, that I did the best in, was when my ego wasn't a factor. And when we talked about this in the workshop this morning, other people weighed in. And one person said that she has had many leadership positions and she recognizes that the ones that she did well in, her ego wasn't a factor, and the ones that she did poorly in, her ego was a factor. What I mean by that is you're feeling very status conscious, you're worried about how people think about you, you're feeling a little bit insecure. I had another person weigh in and she said, you know what, it's not even the different jobs. In your same role, at different times, you can go through phases and you can be on top of your game and feel really confident. And at those times, you're also really powerful as a leader. But you can have times when you're not feeling that you're doing a really good job and you're feeling insecure, or you're just having a bad time, you're feeling a lot of stress in your life, and that impacts your ability to lead others effectively as well. So that was a great discussion that we had. And it's very true. People can tell if you have status insecurity. People can tell if you're looking up at your superiors and focusing on your relationship with them and what they think of you as opposed to focusing on the team. And I've heard it over and over again because when I coach in organizations, I'm usually coaching people at various different levels, and I'm hearing from people, they're just in it for themselves. They just care about what other people think about. They don't care about me. So if you're worried about your relationship with your boss, if you're worried about your status, if you're worried about your compensation, if you're worried about what people are thinking of you, the more you're thinking about that, the more the people around you are thinking that you're in this for yourself and you're not in it for them. And that's why I say most leaders have gotten to a place where they're so humble that they're not thinking about themselves at all. Now, that doesn't mean that you're a pushover, which is something that we talked about earlier in the session. It doesn't mean that they're a pushover, but what it means is you're not always thinking about yourself. You could be in it. That's why the best leaders, when something goes wrong on the team, they don't have any problem taking the heat of it because they've developed enough personal confidence to be willing to take the heat for their team. So that is something that you can work on in your personal growth. That is something that takes time to build up, building enough confidence and self-worth so that you're not depending on your salary or your position or the number of the people that report to you or how your boss sees you compared to your peers, and you're not using that to feel good about yourself. You're feeling good enough about yourself even if you're going through a phase of the organization where you're not getting a lot of visibility or recognition, for example. Number 5, solicit and receive feedback graciously. Use it to continuously improve. People don't expect their leaders to be superhuman, but we do expect our leaders to be real. And we can smell it if someone's trying to be perfect. There are a lot of people that try really hard to look perfect. They dress perfectly. They want to talk perfectly in meetings. They want to say the right things. They want to do the right things. They really think about that polish. But the thing is that when you're putting on a persona, other people feel like you're faking something, and you just smell off. So people start suspecting that you have an agenda that you're not telling them about. They start seeing you as political, and this is just from you trying to put forth the best persona possible. The people that are trustworthy, and people need to trust their leaders, are people who are human and show their humanity. Now, they don't bleed their problems all over the place, but what they do is they say, I know I need to always improve. And so they're very good at soliciting feedback and taking it without getting defensive. And if you think just having an open door policy is enough to get people to come in and talk to you about and give you feedback about what they're experiencing, you're wrong. If someone is afraid of you or intimidated of you as a leader, they're not going to tell you. If they don't trust you, the last thing they're going to do is tell you, because you're their boss and you're the one that holds their job in your hands. And if they don't trust you especially, they're not going to give you feedback, negative feedback. So you have to make it safe for people to give you feedback, And you have to do that by soliciting it and receiving it graciously and responding to it in a positive way. And that means you can't feel defensive when people give you feedback. And that takes growth. So that's the 5th skill. And these are the 5 skills that you can work on no matter how old you are, no matter how much experience or how little experience you have. And these are the goals that are going to elevate your leadership effectiveness. The goals, the skills that will elevate your leadership effectiveness. Now, there are other leadership skills, like being able to manage your time well, like thinking strategically, like making good decisions. But these are skills that you can start working on now because they take a while to get good at. All right. So let's talk about the 3 areas that we identified here: clarity, confidence, and guidance. What are some skills, what are some techniques, what are some things that you can start working on now to improve your ability to give your team clarity, to improve your energy with those that you work with, and to give better guidance and mentoring? So we'll touch on a few things that you can do to get the process started right away. So one is vision. And for those of you, again, that are listening to the recording, what I suggest is that you maybe pause the video or do a print screen. So you can do a screen capture so that you capture these 5 questions. What we did in our morning workshop is we divided people up into groups, and we came up with something. And in this case, it was, let's see if we can get a bunch of people at work to get together on a Saturday and do a beach cleanup initiative. And what we had them do is get into a group and think through these questions and think through a way to communicate to the team to get everybody inspired and motivated to do it. And so these are the 5 questions. What do you want each person to do? If everyone does this, what will happen? Why is this important and or exciting? How does each person's individual effort make a difference? What's a mantra or a simple thing people can remember to keep them on track or excited about getting or staying involved? One person asked me a question about what I meant, and we talk about mission statements like save the whales. Typically, mission statements are very powerful if they're only a few words. So if you have a company mission that's 5 sentences long, nobody's going to remember it and read it. But if you have a company mission that's, 2 to 5 words, people will remember it and they can rally around it. And so when you communicate vision to your team, and you can also create a mantra or something that they can remember, it anchors and grounds them, and it keeps people on track and moving in the right direction. Because it's almost like if it's only 3 words, they can't forget it if it's repeated enough. A lot of people I work with get really frustrated when it comes to communicating vision, goals, and direction. And the reason they're frustrated is because people complain in organizations all the time that they don't have strategic direction. They complain that there's no strategy, there's no direction, nobody gives us a straight answer. And the leaders are up there frustrated because they say, we went off, we had a strategy meeting, we've communicated this, I'm very clear on where we're going, I've communicated this a million times to my team. Why is it that they don't think that they're getting guidance? And the reason is because if you're clear in your head and you communicate it, they're still only going to hear it from their context, which is more limited than yours, because they don't have the same global outlook or the perspective that you do. So they don't have the height that you have. And so they're only going to interpret what you say from the context of their position. So that means you have to repeat things, and you may have to connect dots for people. The other thing is that many times leaders are visionaries, and so they have lots of different ideas, and to them they understand how all the ideas fit together, but when they share their ideas to the people on their team, it seems like they're changing their mind a lot, and it can be very, very confusing. So one litmus test that you can use to help you gauge whether or not you're doing a good job communicating your vision is to listen for when you hear the team talk to each other about the vision without your involvement. So if you hear them saying to each other, hey, we need to save the whales, or whatever your mission is, then they're getting it. if you hear them talking about the goals, if you hear them talking about the vision and how excited they are about it, independent of you asking them, that's when you know that you're communicating it enough. But until then, keep communicating it and keep drawing those lines and help them see how the little things that they do every day contributes to the bigger picture, because they may need someone drawing lines from them, because from their vantage point that they are at, it's probably impossible for them to see the big picture on their own. All right, let's talk about feedback guidelines. So I do a whole course on giving feedback, but the thing that I did in our workshop today is give people a very simple model to help them think about giving ongoing feedback. And that model includes kind of 4 major elements. One is mutual purpose. So we always start when we give feedback by reminding the person that we're talking to about our mutual purpose. And this also helps solidify that clear vision and goal. But it might be something like, we both want you to get in 40 calls a day, right? And the person would say, right, because they know that's one of their goals. Or we both want you to be successful in your job. Or we both want this project to run well. Or we both want the customers to have a great experience with us. And whatever it is that we both want, you always want to start the feedback conversation that way. It reminds people of what the mutual purpose is, but what it also does is it takes your position. And when you're about to receive feedback, you tend to feel defensive and like the other person is coming at you or making you wrong. But when you state the mutual purpose, it brings you together so that you feel like you're side by side. The other thing that's really important, we've already talked about neutral energy, not wanting to have the energy of being irritated. So I'm not going to go into that too much. But I want to talk about behaviors, not characteristics, because when somebody does a behavior that may be ineffective, like making a lot of mistakes, or coming in late, our brain tends to look at the behavior, but then describe it as a characteristic. So if we see someone that makes a lot of mistakes, we say they're careless. If we see someone that comes in late all the time, we say they're lazy, or they don't care about coming in, or they're irresponsible, or they're disrespectful. The thing is if I tell you, hey, I looked at your document that you submitted and I noticed that there's quite a few mistakes on it. Or if I say, hey, I looked at the document you sent me and I noticed that you were careless with it. What was the difference? Well, if you're telling me that I'm careless, you're telling me I'm a bad person, you're telling me who I am. If you're telling me that I made mistakes, you're telling me something I did. That's not as personal. And it's something that I have the power to change. I don't have the power to change a personal characteristic or attribute because that's who I am, but I do have the power to change my behaviors. So what we want to talk about is mutual purpose and behaviors. So we look at our mutual purpose and we think about our behaviors and their relative effectiveness. This behavior, making mistakes and submitting a document with a lot of mistakes on it, is not as effective at creating a good experience for the client that's receiving the document as maybe taking a little bit more time with it, maybe managing expectations with the client so you have an extra day so that you can proof it, or you can have someone you trust proof it. So we get very, very clear about the ineffective behaviors, the more effective behaviors, and we compare them, and we talk about them always in terms of how effectively they get you to the mutual purpose. Now, the thing that I have people do is use this model to give continuous positive feedback throughout the day. You're constantly noticing things that the people on your team are doing that work well, and you're pointing them out, and you're talking about how these things help them more effectively get to the mutual purpose. I notice that your desk is organized and that you have the forms that we need our customers to fill out right here in a stack. So when someone comes up to your desk, all you have to do is take that form and start filling it out, and you'll make sure that you get all the information that we need on our clients. Compare that to you don't have the forms readily available. when somebody comes up to you, just grab a blank piece of paper and start taking notes and asking questions from memory. Often you'll miss some of the details, and then you have to call the customer back. That's not as effective in terms of the customer experience we want to create than the experience of them coming, seeing an organized desk, and not having to be called back because you got all the information you needed the first time. So that's an example of how you might do that. Again, there's an in-depth class that includes a script on how to give feedback, but this gives you a model. And if you think about this model, and if you're constantly looking for things that people are doing well and practicing sharing your observation with them about the behaviors that they're doing that are effective and that are moving us to the mutual purpose, you're doing two things. You are ingraining the goals and the vision. You're helping them remember it. You're also getting them very clear on what behaviors are working, and so you're reinforcing those behaviors. But then every 5th, 6th, or 10th time, you might notice something that they can use a little bit of improvement on. So you share that using the same format. You're using behaviors, not characteristics. People aren't feeling bad when they're talking to you. They really feel like you're invested in them, and that interacting with you is going to help them thrive, and they're going to crave getting that improvement feedback. And so instead of the usual situation where people procrastinate forever on having the negative feedback conversation, they call the person in the office, they have this serious conversation, the person kind of crumbles, they feel defensive. What you have instead is someone craving that feedback from you and getting it on a daily basis. And they're constantly increasing their performance as a result. And you're getting more and more comfortable giving that guidance and mentoring, and they're feeling like they're getting the mentoring and they're growing. So that's how you kind of create that feeling of them getting guidance and mentoring. And again, you don't have to be a manager to start doing this. You can practice giving feedback to the people all around you. So, we want to have a fun Thanksgiving dinner with our family, right? So, if we have a lot of alcohol and people drinking, and, Uncle Jim, he's always drinks too much, and then that makes other people uncomfortable. How about we just don't have any alcohol in the house, and instead we serve bubbling apple cider, and we make some creative milkshakes or something, and that might create a pleasant experience for all of us. So you can practice this form of giving people guidance and feedback without having people that directly report to you. You can do this with people on your project team. You can do this with other students who are in a circle with you. You can do this with your peers. All right. Stress. This is the third main thing. With stress, what I really do is try to help people understand how their stress affects others. Because most of the time when we're feeling stressed, we're not thinking about how our stress is affecting others. We're just all caught up in the stress. We're caught up on how other people are treating us. We're caught up on how bad we feel. We're just trying to pull ourselves together. But it doesn't matter how you express stress. You could be one of those people that kind of, your voice gets a little bit higher. You feel like you're just being passionate, but other people feel like they're being yelled at. You start making jokes to relieve the tension, and people are thinking that you're making fun of them. You go into your office and you just try to hide away from people, and people feel like you're withdrawing from them. You get defensive and you defend yourself, and people feel like you're being very reactive and that you're somehow attacking them. So people are going to respond to your stress every time you have stress. You can't control the level of stress that you have at work, but what you can control is how you manage it. You can control the stories that you tell yourself in your mind about the situations at work, and that's going to have a lot to do with how much stress you experience as a result of stressful situations, and it's going to influence how people around you respond to you. Keep in mind that in stressful situations, people gravitate to the person who seems like they have it under control, the person emanating the energy that says everything's going to be fine. I've got this, we've got this, let's move to action. So people, when they're feeling stressed, they're looking for somebody who's confident and who is focusing everybody on action. So what I do with people is I have them keep a trigger log. And the trigger log, you document the times that you've had emotional reactions, you document the feelings that you had, frustration, anxiety, anger, depletion, drain, kind of how intense it was, what your thinking was at the time. What was the story you were telling yourself in your head that made you feel so stressed? How did you handle the situation? And then maybe another column that says, how do you think that your stress impacted others? And what this trigger log does is it elevates your awareness about your own stress, because often we don't notice our own stress until we're already emanating the energy that other people are responding to. Okay, so we only touched on some of these situations, but I think we did give you a few things to start thinking about and start working on: articulating the vision, giving more feedback and guidance, doing more mentoring, and really developing an awareness of your stress. I'm currently working on a leadership program that is going to be a group coaching program. It's going to include a lot of video classes on these things, on everything from organizing yourself to time management to productivity to giving feedback down to a very script to how to set up mentoring sessions, how to manage meetings, all of that. And it's going to include group coaching sessions where we can talk about each other's situations. It also includes some mastermind groups, and I'm planning on launching this in early 2020. I would love to launch it in late January, but I'm guessing it'll be closer to March. If you are interested in this program and you want me to reach out to you once the program's ready to launch, send me an email. My email is right down here on the screen, nahid@coachnaheed.com, and let me know, because what I will do when the program's ready to launch is I'll just start by reaching out to the people I know are interested and see if they have anyone in their organization they want to sign up, or if they want to sign up themselves. In order to qualify for this program, you don't have to be in a leadership position. This is for high potentials, this is for emerging leaders, this is for business owners, and this is also for established leaders. We're going to be going through all the skills that you need to build to be phenomenally effective in your job and to have that leadership presence and communication skills that you need when you're leading a group of people, and developing those skills so that you're ready for a leadership position when it comes to you. Okay, another thing that you can do, we run 8 free workshops per year, and they are listed on the website, coachnaheed.com. So you can go to the website and look under resources for free workshops, and you can see a list of the next few that are coming up in the next few months. You can also sign up on the email list, and if you sign up on the email list, you will get articles, a couple a month, and also invitations to the workshop, so you'll never miss one. I want to thank you so much for spending the time to listen to this recording. And if you have any questions whatsoever, or you'd like to discuss any of these concepts in a little bit more detail, maybe ask me a private question, I'd be happy to answer you. Feel free to reach out to me via email, or you can go to the website. My phone number's on the website, and you can give me a call. All righty, good luck. Get started practicing. Keep in mind that it's very rare to have a good leader in organizations today. So if you work on building these skills, you are going to be tremendously valuable to any organization that's lucky enough to have you.